Hey everyone, Sleepy Reader here with a new comic book thoughts video. I read this stack of comics in the last 7 days. Felt like kind of too much, but I want to get back caught up. So this was the last 2 weeks previously, and then on Wednesday I picked up new ones, which I haven't touched yet, or maybe I read one of them so far. And along with that, I'm reading some digital comics with my daughter on the iPad. So a lot of comics flooding my brains. I'm going to try to give you quick thoughts about each one, some very quick thoughts. But yeah, like for instance, my daughter and I have just started trying to read Runaways. The first issue of which was very complicated. It made me wonder if we were really reading the first issue of Runaways. It was written by Brian K. Vaughan. I don't know if he did more than one volume of Runaways. But anyway, we enjoyed it. And we've also been reading quite a bit of Supergirl that we've found digitally. So meanwhile, back to stuff last few weeks, stuff from the last few weeks. One of my favorites was Stronghold. This book by Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly keeps getting more interesting so far. So I can't quite see where it's all going. It plays a little bit with the Superman mythos in kind of a new way with this person who doesn't know he's Superman, but is he something else? Is he more like not Galactus, but some apocalyptic character? Or is that a misleading kind of thing? And so all the threads now, there was a woman who kind of started things off now. Her father is playing a role, an intriguing role where he's going to sacrifice all his memories to play his little part in the story. Anyway, I enjoyed this a lot. It's really good. I can't wait to see where it goes next. I won't see where Damage goes next. This was the final issue of Damage. It was a nice ending. They did a good job. A lot of, I think on Damage in particular, but on a lot of these New Age of Heroes books, they changed artists all the time. And ever since they settled on Aaron Lopresti as the artist, he and Vendetti have been working well together, and this has been a good comic. And they wrapped it up, but left it open for more adventures in the future. So I actually hope, as dumb as I originally thought this was, but somehow I kept reading it, I now really hope for a return of the Damage story with some good creators. It would be great if it were Vendetti and Lopresti again, but it could be someone else. So we kind of leave Monster Island, we went through some changes. Now it's back to where it was, so it's also kind of a cool place that could be revisited in other DC comics. So I hope someone else picks up on that. And I don't know what the history of this Monster Island is. It's not the island outside of time where dinosaurs live. It's actually an island where all these monsters have been purposefully placed, I believe, by the superheroes in the DC universe and guarded over by Congo Bill, and in the ocean by this creature that works for Aquaman to keep monsters from escaping from the island. So cool stuff. Not so cool. As Guardians of the Galaxy was one of my favorite kind of guilty pleasure, just fun reads. Totally ruined by War of the Realms. It's just boring fight scenes. And it's almost as if Colin Bunn has given up. He knows he's just got to write this crap. So we get double page spreads that say, "The battle continues," and the battle rages. And let's see, where I think there was one more. There were some others. Hopelessness sets in. I don't know, maybe if you were really into just big battles and the War of the Realms idea of just this huge battle everywhere, but this has totally fallen apart. I'm trying to decide whether to drop it, or I don't know how long War of the Realms is going on for, because I pay no attention to such things. And I don't know if this book will pick back up and be fun, or just be dropped at the end of War of the Realms, the way Marvel so often drops things. So Marvel, again, ruining things with their events. This one feels like an event comic, the Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's kind of a post-event comic of some previous event that I know nothing about. And even though it's by a normally great creative team of Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw, other than kind of having fun looking at the art, it's really tedious and uninteresting, I'm afraid. So I should drop it. Wow, it's issue 4 already. I don't know. I just keep hoping, because I've read such good comics by Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw working together, that somehow this will come together. Little Bird, amazing art. Maybe, depending, of course, on your taste. But if your tastes run to kind of the heavy metal, to simplify things, the kind of just weird science fiction art kind of thing, then this comic is the state of the art at the moment. However, the story is just fine. It's okay. It's a little hazy daisy, new agey, magic-y in a way that doesn't super excite me. So with such great art, I was wishing the story just had a little more oomph to it, a little more interesting layers. It does provide, there's stuff in the plot with all its dreamlike elements and life and rebirth and stuff like that, that provide the artist with fun things to do. So there's that. And this is an incredible deal. It's the same price as any other comic, $3.99 right now. But it is 38 pages of art. It's art through and through. So it's a great deal, and makes those 20-page Marvel and DC comics for shame. And it's not like this is issue 2, so it's not like they're just doing it in issue 1, which is what I had assumed, which would have been great anyway. Here's an issue 1 that cost me $5 from Marvel. I wanted to get some Marvel going here, and I think it's a pretty good story by Peter David, and the art is really fantastic by Greg Land, actually, when it is the superheroes in action. But when it is the just characters sitting around as human beings, the art falters more. And these pages aren't as bad. I think there were some other ones where people really looked kind of dumb to me. But even where the action looks great, I don't think Greg Land's art is right for this kind of mostly humorous story that Peter David is telling, where that's basically about criminals the criminals are losers and jokes, and which I'm a little sad, because I want to take Mysterio more seriously. Like, the great thing about Mysterio is he seems like uber powerful and scary, and then you find out it's all tricks at the end. But here he's already kind of a joke. And the only interesting thing about him is he's not really that bad, and he feels bad when someone gets killed. But here's an example of the kind of Greg Land stuff that is really awful, and again does not go well with a kind of fun, humorous story. It's like Greg Land is off in his own world that has nothing to do with the script, in a sense, artistically. It's just Greg Land world, whatever the script is doing. But yeah, so that makes it a mixed bag. But Peter David is doing a good job here. Loved this. I don't love this cover, which merely rides on the past glories of Savage Sword of Conan and doesn't add anything to those glories. Look, there were all those great Savage Sword of Conan covers. We're not going to do a cover that is that great. We're just going to draw us Conan standing there with the great covers behind him. Anyway, but ironically, inside is really great art by Ron Garney. I can't remember. I've always liked Ron Garney, but I can't remember him being this fantastic. But the other thing that I've really started to realize, this is the 4th issue, and there's only one more issue of this arc with this creative team, is that for me, Jerry Duggan really gets Conan. And the way he does it is not by endless, in the Jason Aaron comic, there's endless sort of caption boxes that are kind of Conan's thoughts or descriptions of what's going on with Conan. But that doesn't get Conan nearly as well as just the occasional turn of the phrase where Conan says something that's just spot on here. Like here, he's drinking some booze. He's a man of few words here, and his few words are the right words. So as he drinks down this booze, one of the other characters says, "That drink must be hundreds of years old." And Conan says, "Aye, and it aged well." And that's all he says. And there's this great scene where he has to throw people across this chasm to get them across, because he's so much stronger and more able to survive. She says, "Well, how could you know you could throw me?" And he says, "I have thrown many women," and that's no more than that. So that's really nice. Anyway, good stuff. I really wish now that Jerry Duggan was the regular writer on Conan the Barbarian, or some other regular comic. But after this one more issue, then we get I think a short story by what's her name, Finch. I can't remember. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name right now. And then after that, we get a story written by Jim Zub, and those will probably, those will be interesting and everything. But now I really want more Jerry Duggan doing Conan, since I have my Conan obsession. Assassination Nation was fun. I can't see this plot going on for more than I don't know, 5 issues, 6 issues at the most. We'll see what they can spin out of it. Another few characters are no longer going to be with us. But lots of clever little things in here. Good writing, good storytelling in the art, which may come from the writer or may come from the artist. I don't know, with like these clever little flashbacks where people say they don't want to tell their story, and then we get a little flashback where we see their story very succinctly put together. So yeah, a fun and funny comic book. Supergirl by this Axe I Rule. I did read this with my daughter, but it mostly in the art had elements of horror that she didn't like, and she had to look away from certain pages just because they were too sort of stomach churning for her. But we got some interesting revelations. It feels like potentially a large part of the Rogol Zar story is being told in Supergirl and not in Superman in terms of the backstory. There's a few nits I have to pick with it in terms of like, so there was this circle of people who was trying to stop violence in the universe, and one of them kind of went rogue and decided, I know who's going to cause problems in the future, so I'll kill them first. But somehow we're supposed to consider the whole circle is at fault for it. Anyway, and the nice little twist that one of her new companions turns out to be the adopted son of the evil rogue person. Sorry for that spoiler. I'm guessing almost no one else is reading Supergirl. And if you are reading Supergirl, you probably already have read it. So anyway, that's going pretty well. So I'd say this is, because everyone talked about how hideously bad Mark Andreyko was on Batwoman, but here I think he's redeemed himself, not as a brilliant writer, but as a good, solid storyteller. Speaking of redeeming, Wonder Twins number 3, finally I kind of liked the story. I think a lot of it had to do with, what are they called? The League of Annoyance or something. This group of loser supervillains is starting to be really fun. Maybe, I don't know, somehow Druncula hit me the wrong way, but now that Druncula's gone, and we have this Nobel Prize winning scientist assigned to the group by Lex Luthor in a kind of blackmail situation. Anyway, it's developing amusingly. I still am not a fan of the art and the coloring, especially the coloring. But so I will. This was the do or die issue for me, number 3. I will continue to get Wonder Twins for now. Hawkman, big battle issue. A lot of fun artwork. This will read great in trades. Of course, you'll get a little bit of gutter loss for the giant double-page spreads, but each issue is just a little increment of the story. It seems hopeless. How is Hawkman going to pull out of this Armageddon-like situation? I don't know. So I'm interested to see. And then I hope this same. I guess the artist is moving on. Sadly, I think I saw that another artist, who's a good artist, I can't remember his name right now, is coming on to this. So I hope it keeps up the same level, but moves on to another story arc. Thunderbolt number 4, Peter Cannon Thunderbolt number 4, the continuation of the Watchmen keeps going in wilder and wilder directions. A large part of the issue is now inside an old indie comic, an homage to an Eddie Campbell comic. Most of us know Eddie Campbell for his that book he did with Alan Moore about Jack the Ripper. I now can't remember From Hell. But he also has most of Eddie Campbell's work, I guess, is quite independent. I sadly never read his comic Alec. This makes me want to check it out. I wonder if spending so much time inside a comic that most people don't know the references is not the best commercial choice. I don't know if they'll lose some readers from this issue. For me, it just became more interesting. It just continued to be more interesting. And I'm very curious what will happen in the next issue in terms of this larger question, of this larger sort of theme of this postmodern take on comics, with at least one of the characters knowing he can travel from comic to comic by creating comic book panels. So anyway, cool stuff. If you're really geeky about comics and like all the kind of iterations of breaking down ways of looking at comics, this is a great comic to be on. Maybe you can still find the first 4 issues. I saw quite a few of issue 1 and issue 2 in someone's dollar bin already. In Excalibur Comics, if you live in Portland, so you could grab them there. Exo Man of War, this is the final Matt Kindt issue. And he wrapped it up, gave Exo Man of War kind of a summing up and a bit of a brief pausing of a happy ending before we go on to the next Exo series. So I was glad of that. In and of itself, as a standalone issue, there's not a lot to it. It's just kind of a coda. But it'll read well in the trades, and it reads well for having read all of the Exos. I feel like there were dangling threads, but I have to go back and read and remind myself what happened in issue 25 if everything really got wrapped up. That was my one caveat. I can't remember things really being wrapped up in issue 25. But this has been a cool run, and so the first half of it I described to someone, and I stand by that description as being like Exo in a kind of Planet Hulk / Conan type of story. And then the second act of Matt Kindt's stuff has been a variety of interesting littler stories back on Earth, which then all tied together with that a bit by the return of some characters in the final story arc. Some of the characters come to Earth who were part of that larger story on the other planet that I want to call Planet Sakaar, but it was not Planet Sakaar. I can't remember what the name of that planet was. It probably says somewhere in here. But anyway, a really solid run throughout from Matt Kindt, and one to seek out in trades for people who are interested in this kind of barbarian / superhero. Okay, here's one that I really had high hopes for, Mary Shelley Monster Hunter. And Script-wise, it was good. I think it was good for people who know quite a bit of the background of Mary Shelley and her relationship with the poet Shelley, and how they hung out in a group with Byron and some other writers and the various wives and girlfriends, and how Mary Shelley was part of a group of people who were free thinkers who didn't believe in marriage, and some other aspects of their sex lives. It's not like modern modern people who are part of orgies or anything like that. But I think for their time, it was fairly loose sexually, and the fact that there's this famous time when all of these people were at a party in a chalet I believe on one of the lakes in Switzerland, and it was a cold winter night, and they decided that they would have a contest to see who could write the best ghost story. And one person, Dr. Polidori, wrote the first vampire story, or one of the first vampire stories to be written down. I think Varney the Vampire, and some other people wrote some other famous stories, and Mary Shelley began her story of Victor von Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster there, which went on to sort of launch the whole genre. And Mary Shelley herself became one of the few women, especially back then, I think in the 1700s or early 1800s, to earn a living, probably early 1800s, to earn a living as a novelist. She earned her own living as a novelist. Shelley eventually left her or died. I can't remember which. So all of that kind of background informs this, and they don't really explain it. And then this is like an alternate universe, because that's not exactly how things are going here. But all of that's interesting. So I think it would be a little hard for I know enough that I felt like I could kind of follow and to a certain extent tease out what was real and what the authors have added here. But I found the art, which kind of looks cool, really did not serve the story. And the colors, not only at times were the colors too dark, which is, sort of my perennial complaint about things, but the colors did not guide the eye to like who the important character was. Like if you have a group party, like here's some really dark stuff that, and ironically, this is colored by the artist, by the line artist. So it's not the fault of like a lazy colorist who was not paying attention to the story. It was perhaps the fault of a artist who's maybe not thought enough about the uses of color. But I'm trying to find an example. Like here's a party scene. A party scene up here, and they're talking about certain people. But it took me a long time to search through here. Okay, where is Mary Shelley in this picture? Where is Byron? Where is the various people that are being talked about? It's just a large group, and they're all colored the same, and there's nothing to guide the eye, and there's nothing in the line drawing to guide the eye. So what is already potentially a confusing story, I think, is made even more confusing by the art and particularly the coloring. So I'll stick with it, but I feel like it's going to get rougher as it goes along. I feel like I'll be more and more confused as to how I'm supposed to be interpreting the story because of the art. Savage Dragon was, I never know what I sort of, my cliche of Savage Dragon is it's always Savage Dragon. You're definitely getting Savage Dragon, but you never quite know in each issue where he's going to go. And this is one of those issues where it was like, that was not what I would have expected, but it didn't really excite me either. But I'm kind of used to that, issues going up and down, and just wait and see what he's doing with all of it. But we got like this whole crazy scene of a birthday party where there's a bad guy at the birthday party, and the little kid fights the bad guy, and in the course of their fight, they just totally smash down a mansion, and somehow no one gets hurt, I guess. There's little kids all over the place. I don't know. I guess it was kind of cool to draw as a drawing kind of thing. And we have the mom is drunk and suddenly wants to have sex with Savage Dragon now after not wanting to have sex before. I just don't know where. It's probably all going to pay off later, but this issue to me was not a particularly exciting one to read. But still really enjoying Savage Dragon overall, so it's not going to change my reading of it. Oblivion Song was just more moving forward the plot with some surprises. I still have problems with the faces and the characters looking a bit alike, but other than that, totally loving the art. I say the same thing every time. Loving the color so much. The colorist makes this art shine. There was a letter on the letters page where someone complains. He wrote, things are just okay in Oblivion Song. One of the letter writers wrote, everyone looks alike. Egg looks like Nathan. Cindy looks like Olive. Bridget looks like Heather. What's up with that? What is up with that? Got to admit anyway. And then their answer goes, Shaw, gotta call you out on this one. These characters do not look like one another. Yeesh. Try again, man. Maybe let's break some ground here. So they put him down for that, and which is the exact same criticism I have here. They could at least say, well, that's your opinion, not ours. But they're like, no, totally, you're just totally wrong. The characters do not look alike. But yes, the characters do. A lot of them look alike, and they're really hard to tell apart. Only real flaw with that book. Lucifer. Okay, this is really interesting to me because rather than wrapping up the first 6-issue kind of arc fully, I feel like what was going on in those first 6 issues is now opened up into the beginning of another plot. You had to have that other story for a setup, I think, for this plot, and yet it feels very different all of a sudden. And I even felt for a little while like the art became more vague and abstract, as if they were trying to grasp where the artist didn't quite know what kind of, I'm telling this new story now. And then I felt like the art gained its ground as it went on. Although we're now in a much more abstract, the ideas were very abstract all along in the first 6 issues in terms of this weird village that we finally found out was inside the skull of a witch and was kind of a trap, a place for this lost soul, so to speak, to live, where he also entrapped Lucifer and various other characters. So anyway, it looks like it's going to be a cool new kind of phase to the story involving a more elaborate plot of Lucifer wanting to find a place for this witch who is loyal to him, a better afterlife, I think. So that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how Dan Waters plays it out and whether he can. When an author goes on to something more abstract, I as a reader worry they'll lose control of it and it will become too vague. But at the moment, it looks like it's going to be good. So I'm looking forward to just seeing how it plays out again. But I'm just noting that suddenly it feels like a swerve or a opening up into a different story than I thought we were in before. So that's interesting. And then I really loved this issue of Middle West. And I think what's happened, it was great art all along and fun concepts and a nice quirky style to it. What's happened now is we've gained a cast of characters who are likably quirky and fun and give our main character Abel's people to play off of. And I love the robot character and his interplay with the girl who invented him. And so I'm hoping that Middle West will stay with this group of characters for a while. Because this issue covers a lot of story ground and ends with a big crisis at the end of the issue. In a way, I wish this issue had been stretched out into 2 or 3 issues of spending even more time with these characters in smaller adventures before a big crisis. But I understand comics don't always work that way. You want a huge cliffhanger every issue, I suppose. But it felt like the artist really got into this. So I don't know. I felt like the art was even. I've been loving the art in Middle West, the art and the color, but it seemed to go even better here. And then there's some fun process stuff at the back. So I wonder if this is digital, like this is like a light sketch. It looks like pen, but very light layouts, and then all the heavier blacks put in, and then we see how the color is added to that. I don't see why we need to see how the color's added, actually, because we have the color version already in the comic in the full size. But I guess without the dialogue, the lettering added in yet. But still, I appreciate when there's extras like that at the back. And again, comparing these Image comics, this is on really nice paper. It really shows off the great coloring. And, of course, there's no ads scattered throughout the story to distract you either. So, you got to ask yourself every once in a while when you're reading lots of Image and other comics like that, why bother with the Marvel and DC comics at all, or wait for just read those digitally. Although obviously I'm still having fun with some of these, but yeah, if you're more limited in your dollars, I would say go for the Image comics and the other higher quality. Dark Horse and Oni and IDW and stuff like that. Spend your money there. Oh, there's one other thing I want to say. Last time I talked about this comic, I talked about how there were a lot of blank faces. And here he even did the blank face on the cover. Before I kept noticing blank faces in the background, but kind of surprising that he does it on the cover. I guess it's kind of a thing for this artist, like an actual stylistic tick, that sometimes he leaves the face blank, even though this is now the central image. And I don't have a quick answer as to what that does for us as an audience, except maybe make the character seem more helpless and powerless or something in this situation, which certainly forecasts something, sort of what goes on towards the end of this issue. So anyway, thanks for watching my quick reviews here that still took me 30 minutes. But got to cut myself some slack. I'm not sure how many books this was, but it was a lot. And I'm going on a long weekend trip, so I hope to talk about my next batch of books, the books I bought this week, sometime next week, or maybe I'll get to find time to be on the Comic Book Roundtable. I'm not sure about that, though, because I do have commitments that Saturday night, but I'm not sure when they end. Anyway, talk to you all later.